Jason.
Hello.
Hey, this is Jason Myles, host of the This Is Revolution podcast. I don't know the full story of the show. It seems like it's been going on a little while, but you just got onto YouTube not too long ago. You're up to congrats on 300 subs today. I checked, so congratulations on that, Jason.
Yeah. It's I've had a YouTube channel for the band for a while, and
Okay.
bands don't give a shit about YouTube. Maybe now a little bit more than they did before, but it's not like I didn't have any friends in the music business that were like, dude, you can totally monetize your YouTube channel if you produce enough content. Like, I don't know. People were too busy trying to tour.
Yeah. I've played in bands for years. That's really quick. So we kind of met on Facebook. I can't
Mhm.
remember if we met through the Michael Brooks listeners group or through the great Ben Burgess, being friends with him. Do you remember?
I think I saw your show and didn't realize who you were. I think it was Ben Burgess. But I saw because you had a show with Ben, uh, Ben
Cabriana.
Cabriana,
Yeah.
skateboarder.
Yes. Cool. So you know Ben. Ben's also a musician of many bands and many skills. So he got COVID, and I did an interview with him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he's better now, thank goodness. But crazy days. But why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? Introduce yourself. When did you start your show? From all the episodes I've seen, I've kind of gleaned that you have like radio experience. No. Okay, then you bash me of all my preconceived notions. When did the show start? And I know you just got a really great co-host, Pascal, right?
Pascal's pretty good co-host. Pretty good. That's
Yeah,
good.
man.
That's all from Torrey Reed, man. Torrey is Cedric Johnson is kind of the main key to that. He came on the show, and then through Cedric, Torrey heard that show. I was able to get Torrey, and then through Torrey, he was like, you know what, you should talk to my buddy Pascal. So I was able to get those two dudes on, and we would like before they came on the show, we would like message each other and talk. They're a little older than me. That whole crew of dudes is a little older than me, but like politically, we're kind of all on the same page about where we think about the idea of a black politic. So, and when I first interviewed Torrey, I actually had no idea that that's Adolf Reed's son.
Really?
I had read. I mean, his book doesn't say my daddy is Adolf. I bought his book. I was like, this brother, he kind of sounds like the other dude. Maybe they're related. And then I was like, oh shit, it's your pop.
That's funny. I think I first saw him on Michael Brooks' show, and of course Adolf Reed. And I think when he introduced him, he made that clear. But the interesting thing I found about your show, especially listening to like the three of you, I believe it was you, Pascal, and Torrey. Were you talking about which film was it?
Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood. Like, wow, man. It was like for me, from a white boy who grew up into the Central Coast, like there was like G-force, like cultural political G-force, like listening to everything that was going on in that discussion, and just interesting to hear you guys talk about like how that movie just in and of itself was like deeply seated in Reaganism, which I was just like, what?
Right-wing politics. It's a commercial for the 94 crime bill.
Wow.
Watch it again. Anyone out there that's seen Boys in the Hood, watch a movie like Boys in the Hood. And look, I will watch it if it comes on regular ass TV.
It's one of those.
I'm in the room and it's there. It holds a certain value to me because I watched it as a 12, 13-year-old growing up in Richmond, California, 4 hours north of you, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So there's definitely things in there that I can relate to. Menace to Society as well. Menace to Society is like a scene for scene remake of Boys in the Hood, just a little more hood, right? Like, it weren't real enough. Let's double down on that realness because it's not real unless you're really hyper violent.
Got to be gritty. It's like Godfather versus Goodfellas, right? Trying to be more real.
I like that.
A little more real. So, so you're also a musician, and so I find this interesting. Like that's how like you said you saw Ben, and I think you've been down here to Santa Maria to play shows. But tell me a bit about your experience traveling the country, maybe even the world, it sounds like, touring, playing music. And then how does that intersect with your politics, or how did you get into politics in the first place?
I mean, we're Californians, right?
Californians, yeah.
There's something to be said about being from California, especially where you are in the Central Coast, because you have so many Bay Area expats. You have so many ex-hippies that are where in the area that you're in. Because I did live in Pismo for a little bit.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with the area.
Very cool.
Pismo Beach, one of the most beautiful beaches in all of California, maybe the country.
Absolutely.
So there's, and I went to school right outside of Berkeley, so I was always a little bit political. Even the school I went to was a lot of people are pretty, what's the word you young people say, woke?
I don't know. I'm 32. I just turned 32. How old are you?
I'm 43.
All right, you got 11 years on me. I guess you could call me young, but I didn't coin the term woke.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So that I've always had, but touring definitely radicalized me, because through touring on such a low level, I've only been on a bus tour once, and I was like working for that. But as a musician, actually playing shows, I've always been in a van. I've never had a crew.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I have to sleep on the floors or couches in the cities that I'm in. So I'm really in your city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really got a slice of, Americana. And I started doing it right after a lot of shit had happened, like right after the oil spill, which really affected a lot of people down south.
Yeah.
After the financial collapse. So you're dealing with a lot of broken cities. It's not just Detroit. It's like that whole region, where everything is deindustrialized, and people are just definitely angry. And then here I come, the black guy, playing weird ass arty fucking heavy music.
Yeah.
An Asian Canadian.
Like very loud music, right? That was part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a few bands here of like friends of mine that I knew that it was like, they called it art rock, which was just like, it's just super loud shit, and
we're definitely in that scene.
Yeah. And I think it was either on your show or somewhere you mentioned like there was a town in Mississippi where they just told you to leave or something.
Meridian,
like
Mississippi.
Whew.
Meridian, Mississippi. We played 2 songs. This is a true story. We got there late. It was the only time in 7 years we ever showed up somewhere late, because it was a 12-hour drive. I'm horrible with booking tours and drives. And I played in a band with my now ex, and that's maybe one of the reasons why she's an ex now, me and my 12-hour drives.
Oh.
So we get there, and when you're driving, I forget where we were the night before, but we definitely were in a different time zone the night before. And we finally get there, and whoever was the promoter wasn't there. So I never know what I'm going to see. I've definitely played in places that are pretty fucking white, but that one was just really uncomfortable. And it wasn't my first time in Mississippi, but it was just uncomfortable. If you know Meridian, that's where the trial was, I believe, for the officers and the people that killed the civil rights cats in '65.
Oh, Reverend Grebe or Reeb? Is that one?
No, so
that
if you
like
remember the Mississippi burning.
Oh, yeah.
So before it was burning, it was some civil rights leaders got killed when they were trying to register people to vote.
Okay, yes, that one. Sorry, there is a lot of those, right?
Yeah, Mississippi, the South has a torrid history, right?
Yeah.
So we get there and we unload and we get on stage, and people are kind of, the people that were there did not look like they were there to see fucking weird shit. But whatever. Who am I? Who am I to judge? I do not know. And we play a couple songs, and the owner walks over and goes, "You just have to leave."
Oh my god!
And we were pissed off, man. We just drove like 12 hours. We're fucking mad, and everyone that was there. This is where it got weird. Everyone that was there bought shit. Yeah,
Merch, like
yeah,
CDs. Huh.
yeah, vinyl. So it wasn't like this is where it got weird. It wasn't like the people were tapping the guy on the shoulder, like, man, get these colors. No, like I don't know what prompted him to do that. Um, and so as we're leaving, and we're pissed, and people are. The bartender walked over. He's like, "Hey, man, you should probably just leave."
Oh my
All
God.
right,
Jeez.
and he's trying to be nice about it. Like it's just, yeah, this is fuck this town. I know, fuck this town and fuck these people. That's why you don't need to be here.
Oh man.
And like he was saying it with some sort of love, right? Like, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
a
yeah.
man walks up to me and he's holding our vinyl. I wish I had a copy of it because it's a very, very kind of crazy picture. And he's got a puffy, a down vest and a plaid shirt and
He,
like a John Deere hat. Like, he looks like he uses the N word. Like it looks like, right?
he has the full
Well,
uniform.
he's got the uni.
Yeah.
He's got the home uni. He walks up to me, home uni on, and looks at me and he goes, puts his head down and he goes, I hope you find it in your heart to find your way back to Meridian, Mississippi. And I can't wait to take this vinyl home and listen to it right now. And
Wow.
I'm very sorry for the way you were treated here.
Just that's an illustration, I think, of America and what it's like, you know.
So, so when I was telling you earlier, when I was getting into like a bull BS Twitter fight with people I don't know in real life,
Of course.
when you have that experience constantly, it definitely doesn't change the way I see everything, because I definitely heard horrible things said to me and my ex all over the country, mainly in the north and then sometimes in the south. So racism is fucking real. It's not that it isn't real. It's just doing music the way we did it. I think we connected to a very working class audience. So we spent a lot of our time playing really, really arty music that most people only play in the major cities
Hmm.
in the middle of the country. And then after like the first year of doing it, we felt like that was our mission, to stay in these pockets that we probably shouldn't be in.
Wow.
So really hearing people's stories of constantly hearing the same story of how people got hooked on opioids, or
Meth.
how they lost everything
Hmm.
from a few years ago. They were living high on the hog. Maybe they worked in the oil industry and then the price of oil changed and they had to, lose a job, right? I worked in North Dakota for a year, and all my friends that worked in North Dakota don't have jobs. When
Yeah.
I worked in the Gulf of Mexico for a while on oil rigs. Those guys didn't have jobs after the spill. So you're constantly, or even working with people in the Gulf of Mexico that had retired and had to come back after they retired because their pension was gone because of Enron.
Jeez.
So you really your music starts to become almost the ballad of these people, because you're hearing their stories day in and day out, and they're the people taking you in and making all these little places, all these little pockets of the country and of the world, even because this is a global story, uh feel like home. Like, I can go to Glasgow right now in the hood in Scotland, and it'll just be like a homecoming.
Wow. So you
So
played Europe too.
the UK, yeah, we got
The
stuck in
UK.
the UK for 2.5 months.
Oh, well, stuck. I mean, I guess you could call it that, but
We didn't have any money, so we were
no. Well,
stuck.
you're okay. You're stuck. I guess. Yeah. My
We were
grandmother,
playing.
my dad's mom, was born and raised in Dundee, so I've always,
I know where that is.
yeah, yeah. If there was a place to get stuck, it was Scotland. And for me, here on the Central Coast, we have lots of fog. You know, the fog just
Mhm.
rolls in, and
Mhm.
like something in my DNA lights up. I'm just like,
I,
oh,
I
it's
I have
great.
an affinity for Scotland. It was it was surprisingly violent when we were there. It was the stabbing capital of Western
Oh,
Europe. Was Glasgow,
wow.
and we got a big warning, but we stayed there with a good friend. We were on the same label at the time, and we got stuck there because of the way the routing was on the tour. We were stuck there for like 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
And so, because I had cooked professionally and they had a VPN, so they got US cooking shows, and they were like, what is pulled pork?
Oh,
What is
that's
this
awesome.
meatloaf? So I was like,
Wow.
it's like if we can crash here, I'll cook for you guys every night.
Shoot. And did you make him any tri-tip? That's our
No,
thing here in Santa Maria.
we did pulled pork. We I tried to make Mexican food with what I could find out there because the spices are a little different.
Yeah, I was gonna say good luck with that out there. Jesus.
But
You put like
they gave us
Cotswold or Gloucester cheese on a taco or something. Some weirdness.
their cheese is a little different too.
A
Yeah,
lot, yeah, a lot of ways. It's interesting because your journey with music. I never like toured, but I kind of had a reverse thing where I'm from the Central Coast. Santa Maria is like the bigger city on the Central Coast, but it's not the city. It's not Santa Barbara. It's not San Luis
There's an
Obispo.
airport there though.
Yeah, we have. Oh boy, we had like one airline for years, and we got like two. And I was like, woo.
Does Jet Suite X go there now?
I don't know. It was a big deal when we had like direct routes to Vegas. Like that was like, whoa, boy, like you can go to Vegas. But anyway, yeah. So like the band I played in that did the most was a country band. It was this guy who was a transplant. It's like you talk about transplants come to the Central Coast. The guy who led the band was a transplant from Michigan who met a transplant from Texas who was like some kind of just some dude with money who lived by the golf course who was like, I love your music. Big cigar smoking guy, try to crush your hand.
Let's do it, brother.
He's straight up. He tried to crush your hand every time he shook your hand. And like we played, we played all the pay to play places in LA, like Whiskey Go Go and the Viper Room and all that stuff. I think that's the one. It was hell. But then the best show that we did was opening for Darius Rucker at Pozo Saloon. Yeah, so that was pretty
That's
cool.
probably packed.
It was packed. Yeah, it was packed. I went out to get like a beer for my lady. I don't really drink at the concession stand. And this guy comes up and goes, "Hey, I really like." I start chatting. I really like what you're doing there on the organ. I was like, "Oh, thanks, buddy," and start chatting with him. And I mentioned the newspaper I work for. He goes, "Yeah, I know the editor, Ryan." And then I'm like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I live in Santa Maria." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he's like, "Yeah, I don't talk about it though because of my brother much. My brother." And then I realized this is Bill Murray's brother. It's Ed Murray.
No shit. I didn't know that.
He lived in Santa Maria. He just passed away this last year. Or
He was in Santa Maria?
He lived in Santa Maria because he loved our golf course. That was just the whole thing.
It's a quiet area. For those that don't know, for anyone that's watching this show that doesn't know the Central Coast, Oprah Winfrey a while back said that a few cities up from where Joe is, San Luis Obispo is the most beautiful place on earth.
Oh gosh, yes.
It's the only beach.
It's the happiest place on earth.
Was it the happiest place on earth?
It's happy. Yeah, it's so happy. Every time my wife has gone there, she's just experienced some kind of racism for being Latina. I mean, I've seen drunken Cal Poly frat bros yell at her and her friends to go back to Mexico. It's a whole thing. I've done coverage too
I've seen some bloody ass fights in AG.
Oh, I'm sure.
Walking back from the fucking gas station, like holy shit! Like you guys are, the weekends. So
Dude,
the Central Coast, if I'm not mistaken, is the only beach you can drive.
Say what?
It's the only beach you can drive on.
Yes, Grover Beach. Yeah, Oceano Dunes Preserve is the only like beach in the. People come from states away with their dune buggies and all their and their Trump flags and everything else to drive on the on the dunes. My sister dated like dudes who would go duning, and I remember like these are like 19, 20-year-old guys who need knee surgeries. One guy like burst his nutsack open. Like
you talk about Huckfest?
No, just duning, just going out to the dunes, drinking and quadding and all this stuff, man. It's a funny thing. But yeah, man, so that was my experience with music. But we wanted to talk today about politics and pop culture, and I would love to start with music a little bit and ask you, like, because welcome to the Rebellion, A New Hope in Radical Politics by Michael Harris. Really quick, so that's from Zero Books, right? Do you want to explain to me your show's relationship and of course, introduce your show with Zero Books? Is this new? What happened? What's the scoop?
Yeah. So I reached out to Ben Burgess some time ago. Michael Brooks was still with us when I reached out to Ben Burgess, and we had a good time. And he at first gave me like 20 minutes, and then we're talking more and more and more, and then he gave me more time, and I definitely made him laugh. If you've heard the episode, I give him some shit because it happened right after. If anybody remembers the Michael Brooks show, Ben Burgess will go talk to anybody and he will debate anybody.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say in finger quotes. Ben Burgess will debate anybody.
Yeah.
That's like his thing.
Give them
And
an
so he
argument.
made
His
it
show.
basically- Say again.
His show. Give them an argument. He likes to argue with people.
That's just that's right. His thing. He's the logic guy. I'm
Yep.
gonna argue. He was on the Michael Brooks show as the logic guy, and I'm gonna show you why these other people's right wing arguments don't make sense. So he went on a show called the Jesse Lee Peterson Show.
Oh.
I never fucking heard of Jesse Lee Peterson.
Amazing.
I don't know any black people that have heard of Jesse Lee Peterson. Apparently, he's got a following. So there's a lot of 330 million people in this country. Of course, I don't know them all.
Yeah.
So Michael Brooks used to play this clip every time Ben Burgess would come on for a while, where they would give him shit because Jesse Lee Peterson called Ben Burgess a beta male because he asked him these kind of silly questions.
Beta male. Yeah.
Yeah, beta.
Beta.
But he was looking for Ben to give him an answer the way he wanted an answer.
Of course.
And he knew Ben wasn't going to give him that answer, that kind of fuck you, or as Doug Lane calls it, big dick energy answer. That's not Ben's thing. That's not what he does.
No.
So it didn't work out real well for Ben because dude just kept calling him ostensibly a punk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so I told Ben, I was like, look, man, next time you go on Jesse's show, you tell that motherfucker you got one more beta male. You say that shit again, I will come through this TV and slap the fire out of your ass.
Oh my god.
And Ben just started cracking up.
Yeah. I can only imagine how he would try to deliver that. Hey Jesse, listen, I'm just gonna tell you, I'll slap the fire out of your ass. I love Ben Burgess. I really love him. Just bought his book. Give them an argument, logic for the left. But so tell me really quick, what's your relationship with Zero Books, and then we'll dive into Star Wars and the politics of Star Wars. Oh, it's all good, man.
I'm cracking the fuck up at you doing a Ben Burgess impersonation.
Oh yeah, so basically, Jesse, stick it up your ass and break it off, or so. I don't know. I like to do impressions, but
no, that was funny as fuck.
Thank you. Ben has a certain cadence. You got to get that cadence.
He does. He does. I hit Ben up today about the shit that happened. Anyway, so through Ben, I interviewed Doug Lane.
Yes.
Through Doug Lane, I interviewed Michael Harris, who wrote "Welcome to the Rebellion."
Yes. And you've interviewed what's his name, Derek Varn, right?
Derek Varn.
That was another G-Force interview. When I heard that one, I was just like,
yeah.
That was
Derek
impressive.
is a deep dude, but those guys have a different style, and I'm more like you, Joe. I want to get to know a person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have this conversation about Marx. We can have that conversation, but that's for another person, for another show. My show is for people that are kind of new to thinking about leftist theory. Even like our first show for Zero Books was an older episode that we did with a professor that actually got his doctorate under Richard Wolff, Dr. Astatar Bear.
Oh yeah, I like him. I was digging on his
He's
stuff.
dope, man. You should have him on your show. Have him on your show.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't let anyone on my show who has a beard that's larger than mine. That's just
his beard is awesome.
No, there's no beard envy. All beards are special. But I would love to have him on sometime.
I'll give you his contact information.
Very
cool. I said,
anyone
anyone that I've had that you want to talk to, I will always forward that information over.
Yeah, I just got a comment here. Blue24 missed some awesome interviews. You didn't miss them, buddy. You can go to This Is Revolution on YouTube, and you can listen to those podcasts. That's what I've been doing. A lot of great stuff. And you go live several times a week now, but I remember Tuesdays is like the main show.
Tuesdays is the show that goes on Zero Books on Wednesdays.
Okay.
And then Thursday, we do a show with just Pascal and myself. And tomorrow, we're doing a show, another Saturday thing. We did a Saturday thing last week with Jean Bajlan, Derek Varn, Pascal, myself, and Dan Larson of Toy Galaxy. So he's got a great pop culture show.
Very cool. Just got another comment. Jay Coleman says the Zero Books crowd can woke explain things, which I still enjoy, but can alienate some. I think that Jason's addition to the channel, his show, like you just gotta check out Jason's show, whether you're doing it through Zero Books or you're doing it directly on his channel, and just see these are conversations like I've never heard before. And
Yeah.
go ahead, Jason.
No, first question I asked Doug. Doug. So me and Doug started playing a role-playing game for Zero Books,
Mm-hmm.
a leftist role-playing game. It's me, Doug, his children, or two of his kids, and Jean Bajlan. We're doing it tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Zero Books will be live streaming role-playing the game Mothership.
Oh, check that out, people.
So Doug goes, hey, I'll take the show. They need more content, whatever. And I was like, well, how do you want to do it? We discussed how we're going to do it. And I said, am I going to be too black for your channel? And he goes, I never thought that. I was like, word? Because we're black. And he goes, well, how black are you? Like, we're not N-word dropping black, but there's some black shit that's going to happen on the show. So
in the game, you mean? In the Mothership game?
No, on our show to Zero Books.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
No, I play. I think I actually play a white guy in the game. We don't have colors there, but the game is fun.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So let's talk. We'll get to the censorship stuff later, but let's talk. Yeah, we for multiple streams now, Jason is in my comments and he's saying Star Wars, talk about Star Wars. I want to hear about Star Wars. And he keeps plugging this book to me. I haven't got it yet. I'm so behind on all these things. Like you, Jason, I'm not a guy who can sit around and just talk theory all day. I spent years just working full-time as a journalist, and so all of my reading and writing was done like for my work, and I was lazy on that stuff for a long time, so I'm playing catch up. But it's interesting. I think a lot of people access politics, or they form their ideas of politics through pop culture. After my newspaper job went away.
Sorry to hear about that, by the way.
Yeah, well, hey, it's just part of the great dying off.
You should come on the show. We do a whole show about small newspapers being sucked up by these major conglomerates. And
I would love to. And
the
newspaper I was with is still independent, but they've just tightened the belt. They have less content, less editors, less everything. So it's a shame, but. It was interesting because after that, I worked full time at a factory. It was a guitar factory. I won't say any more, but if it's Central Coast Guitar Factory, you could probably guess. But so
are you a luthier?
I did neck work. I did fret work. I got pretty good at it. But like I got to my first, review, and they were like, no raise. Like none. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, you're doing great. Everyone loves you. You're a great part of the team. You're doing really good at your job, but no raise. And so, and I remember like dudes who'd been there like 15 years wiping down a body right next to me and being like, oh yeah, like we all work here, but none of us can afford these guitars, and like, yeah, we're in like the setup department, like the room that is the last room before the guitars go out the door. And they're like bringing in $250,000 every day, right? And you're sitting there grinding away, breathing in metal shavings. And so it's still a factory. Just because it's music doesn't mean it's not a factory. But so I was sitting across this like 20-something, and I'm realizing the divide in my generation of the millennial generation, right? Where I'm like, I call it like early batch millennial, where we actually have a literal memory of 9/11 happening. We saw it on live news. Okay. And then you have late batch millennial, and they did nothing. It was, they were in kindergarten. Yeah, it was just another thing, like, huh? And this guy's whole, like, he was one of those people who said, well, I don't really politics. I don't like to take sides, and I don't really pay attention to politics. But like he kept saying these things that were politics. Like, oh man, I really hate, like, I got to pay taxes, and and it's like, you're not thinking for a second that these people the millionaires who own this place could pay you more, right? Mm-hmm. But you're mad at the government, right? And really, he was a video gamer who like was addicted to South Park, right? And that informed his worldview, was video games in South Park. Yeah, and of course, like the only conversation we could have was like Star Wars. And I started trying to talk politics to him, and the boss man came up and said, hey guys, what is it, like bar rules, no religion and no politics. So you're on the clock and you can't talk about
Mhm.
interesting ass shit.
About
Eh,
things that you're talking about kind of daily. No, I hate that. I hate that whole thing. I hate
yeah,
that whole thing.
but
Don't talk your politics. Yeah.
yeah, but so let's talk of this book. What do you like about this book? And then tell me, were you always a Star Wars fan? Were you?
Yes.
So tell me your journey with Star Wars, because for me, it was
Mhm.
always the original trilogy. Empire Strike Back is one of the greatest pieces of cinema
Yeah.
of all time.
Yeah.
And
Cursor.
even
Yeah.
even the in the '90s, the redos are
I went to the
sus.
theater. So there's a tattoo shop. If you're in Santa Maria, it's in AG. It's
Okay.
called La Luz now tattoo. It was called, I think, Tried and True. What's the main street? I can't forget the name of the main street that goes through fucking AG and Pismo and all that shit. There's one main street.
Oh,
It's
the
on
Five
that.
Cities.
Yeah, it's on that main street.
Yeah, Grand.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
Grand Avenue.
So my good friend is a tattoo artist there. Her name is Natasha. If you
Cool.
want a tattoo, if they're still open, go see them. Tell her I sent you.
All right,
Uh,
all right.
we went and saw those redos. Me, her husband, and some other friends. Like waited in line.
Yep,
We
the whole
saw
thing.
the new prequels. It was an event. I didn't necessarily like the prequels. I didn't mind the redos as much as some people did. I just liked Star Wars shit, right? I liked the toys. At
Yep.
one point in time, I had a whole wall full of action figures. Um, I that story spoke to me like it did so many other kids my age. I was born in '77, literally born when the first one came out. My
Wow.
parents took me to the theater to see the second and third ones.
Hmm.
So I made my kids watch them. Um, and actually, through my oldest's boyfriend, he gave me a new appreciation for the prequels when I asked him randomly one day. I was like, "What's your favorite Star Wars movie?" Because my daughter always gets me something Star Wars related.
Cool.
Um, and he goes, "Well, the first one, because that's the one. That's the first one I saw. That's the first one like I saw a little
Yeah.
kid win."
Which first one? Yeah.
He meant the Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
And I was like, "Oh, I never thought
Oh.
of that." And it wasn't for me. And that was like the first time that my selfish brain clicked. I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
this isn't for me." And then
Yeah.
there's a gentleman named David K. Johnston, who I think he runs Raw Story,
Yeah. I
but he's a reporter and
ringing
he
a bell.
wrote
Yeah.
No Free Lunch about taxes, and he
Okay.
also wrote a couple books about Trump. Good guy. He's from Cali. He's from the Bay. Anyway, he did a seminar or a talk a few years back, and he talked about Star Wars, the first movie being about taxes and trade agreements. He's like, if you really want to understand taxes and trade agreements, you need to watch Star Wars
Episode one.
episode one. And that's
Yeah.
why, and in the book, it actually explains it more in depth that George Lucas wanted to make those movies to explain how a society becomes totalitarian.
Oh.
And the first movies he made to show, hold on, I highlighted some parts
Go for it.
because I knew I was going to talk to your furry white
Yeah.
ass.
That was a funny thing that I noticed, because my wife and I have been rewatching them all, and that is like a weird thing. Like, because when you're a kid, like you don't know what a trade union is, or the tech
No.
trade unionists and all this jazz, and so I mean, you go ahead and share with me the excerpt there. But that is a weird that is something. Watching it again, I was kind of like, huh. So he has this weird private sector, like entity is what Palpatine is pulling the strings with to eventually, ascend to power as the trade unions or whatever.
And it's a betrayal of the trade union, right? And
Hmm.
it's like crazy tax agreements that they're making and how they're trying to avoid taxes, and then there's embargoes going
Yep.
on. It's very confusing, and it's not what you wanted, because you wanted your laser swords and the force and the
Yeah.
explosions.
Yep.
And it's very, very light on that because they have to paint that picture of how a society becomes authoritarian. And that's why the cartoons to me are so interesting, because they dive a little deeper into the narrative of, well, if you blow up the Death Star and you got rid of the bad guy, how do they come back?
And
Well,
which cartoons are you talking about? Clone Wars, Rebels?
either one, Clone Wars or Rebels,
Okay, okay.
especially Rebels.
I just haven't made time for those, but
Oh, they're so good. They're so good.
I just thought they're made
Um,
for kids. You know, I thought it was like Disney Channel stuff.
it
But
is, it is, and let's be honest, Star Wars is made for kids, right?
yeah, yep. Of course. And then we talked about before we spoke about the people versus George Lucas, right? And how
Mhm.
that was part of their thing. Is like what like, or just the idea that Star Wars was always made for kids. You're not a kid anymore, you old nerd. Like, get over it. And it's even funny because I remember I was born in '89, so when Phantom Menace came out, I was like a kid. I can't remember what year it came out. But I remember
99.
how my brother, I have a younger brother who's like 3 years younger than me.
Mhm.
And he was he thought Jar Jar Binks was great. And I was just
Yeah.
kind of like, nah, I'm not that into him. You know what I mean? So like,
It was adults that killed Jar Jar Binks, not children.
well, not children, but I was already getting old enough where I was like, that character bugs a little bit, man. I'm not like that.
He was a nuisance that was unnecessary, and
Yeah.
the other don't suffer because there's less Jar Jar Binks, right?
Yeah. Of course, he brings down the Empire. Let's not forget that. It's almost like George Lucas wanted to stick us in the gut with Jar Jar Binks.
Misa vote, nanny.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's good.
If you think about, like, so there's slavery before the Empire, and that's something that we don't think about with the Republic.
Anakin is a slave.
Anakin is a slave during the Republic. And you know what? His son isn't a slave, but he lives in this outer region of nothing.
He's like a sharecropper, basically.
We'll call him a sharecropper.
Mm-hmm.
And Han Solo, where he's from, if you watch the movie Solo. So there's all this inequality in these outer regions that have never been addressed by the Republic, because the Republic, if you think about it, is just like the Obama era administration of neoliberalism.
Oh, you went there.
And
everybody's happy and smiling with all their millions.
Tell you that he was trying to say that in these movies. And then what it is it's supposed to be kind of what this is what the writer says. I'm gonna read you what Michael Harris said. He's not here with us because he's suffering a time zone difference.
Okay.
That's the only reason why he's not here.
I understand that Zero Books makes you plug for them on every stream that you do. So no, I'm just kidding. Go for it. Let's hear it.
So Michael has a new book out, and I have the PDF of his, or it's not out yet, but I have the PDF of his new book. It's about the Hunger Games. So
all right.
This book is about how real empire of authoritarianism and corporate domination has now come for us. It rose to power within weakened and corrupted republics. It promised order and security, but relies on domination and fear, and now threatens our existence on a planetary scale. But it's also about hope. Empire is more vulnerable than we often assume. The rebellion is all around us, and it's spreading. It is a struggle for freedom and democracy and for peace and justice in the face of multiplying crises. It is a rebellion that can no longer wait and which will force us to take sides. To win, we need to tell popular stories about the need to stand against empire. We need to believe that many more people are ready to join the rebellion than we are often told. And among other things, we need to claim popular culture to do it.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, man. Dang. That's interesting. That's
why Star Wars is important to me, because Star Wars for me is a way to talk to people about change and doing real shit without being like, well, what do you mean you never read Das Kapital?
Jeez. Oh no, they're gonna kick you off of Zero Books, Jason. You gotta be careful.
Well, that's what I told Doug. I said, Doug, I don't do the play pretend politics. He goes, well, that's gonna be a problem because all we do is play pretend politics.
That is awesome. Well, but so that's kind of how I see the role of my show a little bit. Is like, I'm a print journalist. I want to demystify journalism. Everyone hates the media, know, and I used to like do interviews and people would start freaking out and hyperventilating like I've never done an interview before, and I'd be like, listen, I'm a chubby guy at a desk, just relax, Just tell me what's going on. Tell me what you know. It's okay, you know. But also, I want to like demystify politics. You know,
Mhm.
like conspiracy theory happens because people feel like they can't get a grasp on the world, and so they have to confabulate special, you know, conditions and characters to explain it. But if you can meet people where they're at, and I think that's an interesting thing about employing Star Wars or employing pop
Mhm.
culture to do that. Um, you know, so I guess the question is like, who's Trump in all of this? Is he the Emperor? Is he
Well,
Darth Vader? Is
right.
he Grievous? Like who?
That's what I said. So Michael Harris and I did it. We did a show. He did it. We did a show. We talked for an hour beforehand, recorded for an hour, and we talked for another hour. Sorry, I'm gonna turn this down. I apologize.
It's all good. No worries.
Uh, I should tell you who it is just to fuck with you.
Oh yeah, is it Ben?
No, not this time. Uh, uh, so my theory is that Grievous is Trump and Palpatine is Joe Biden.
Whoa! All right, let's flesh it out here. Let's hear it.
If you watch those prequels, Grievous is the man that is the big problem. But when you watch the cartoon, there becomes more layers to the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So when you watch the movies, it's just kind of more simplified. It's still a little complex.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they get to the third movie, they really start to try to simplify it. So you have the separatists, they're called, right?
Yep.
So Grievous is the one that's kind of behind this separatist movement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start watching the cartoons, there's characters in the cartoons that aren't in the movie
Mm-hmm.
that play these big roles, like Rosario Dawson. If anybody's watched The
Yeah.
Mandalorian,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
big role
Great.
because she's ostensibly Darth Vader's Padawan, and she
Whoa.
leaves the Jedi Order because she starts to see that there is layers to this onion that is this Clone War. And if you look at the history of Star Wars, what is now canon, the Clone War is a very short war in all these battles that they've had over time before the Battle of Yavin 4, which is the first New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump plays a role, but he's not really the puppet master that everybody thinks he is. He's not the dictator everyone thinks he is because ultimately, realistically, Donald Trump doesn't have an ideology. Had Donald Trump been dominating the media cycle 2 weeks before the insurrection, the riot, whatever you want to call it, maybe it doesn't happen. But he wasn't. Joe Biden was the talk of the town. What was he going to do? Who's going to be in his cabinet?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was talking about Donald Trump. He had lost. He
Mm.
has hissy fits. His run for president comes from a hissy fit over Gwen Stefani, finding out Gwen Stefani made more money than him.
What? I thought it was Obama clowning on him with what's his face at the correspondence dinner.
You think Obama's the first black man that ever told Trump something he didn't want to hear?
I don't know. I don't. How good of a scholar am I of Trump? I'm not sure.
Donald Trump would much rather hang around Russell Simmons and Kanye West than any fucking Proud Boy.
Hmm.
And I think people forget that about Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Donald Trump would much rather stare at Kim Kardashian's big fat ass than whoever the fuck was on the Capitol building. One of his staffers was quoted as saying that he looked at that insurrection as not classy, and he doesn't like things that aren't classy.
But, like I don't know how you have a classy insurrection. I don't know, like you know, if the guys need to roll up in their I don't know,
He doesn't
beating
like
cops with their Rolexes or whatever, you know. But
he doesn't like none of them people.
well, I think Michael Cohen said some of that, like that he's not about them. He's kind of revolted by them in a way, or he's supposed
Hell,
reportedly to have remarked after COVID, like, "I'm just so glad I don't have to touch all these people anymore."
don't you believe it? Like seriously, let's get in the Wayback Machine here for a second, the pop culture Wayback Machine.
All right,
Let's go find those pictures of Donald Trump hanging out with big time famous rappers.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Had no problem with that shit because them motherfuckers was rich like him. and he
Mhm.
felt very fucking comfortable around them.
Mhm.
And they believed whatever bullshit he was putting out there about how fucking rich he was, even when he wasn't
Mhm.
as rich as he claims to be. He's definitely very
Yeah.
wealthy.
But how do you pair that with like his housing discrimination, his father's history with that, and then also like the Central Park Five ad, the full page ad?
I never said he loves colored people. I just said that he loves rich colored people. I got bad
Money.
news for Joe. I got bad news for you and a lot of people that listen right now. There's colored people right now that don't like other colored people, especially if them colored people is poor.
Oh. Oh no. You mean class has something to do with
Yeah,
this?
it's a fucking thing. And
Dude, I'm a Santa Marian.
uh-huh.
Like, trust me. Like, we have a little town up near us called Los Alamos,
Mhm.
and it used to be like just a sad little one horse town. Like, it's this little podunk. But guess who got really interested in it? Hollywood people. There's
Oh,
like, and now, like, I mean, was it Kurt Russell owns part of a place? Emilio
I can see that.
Estevez's wife owns another thing. A guy started a bakery. He was a Sony executive. So they call Los Alamos Little LA. And like
Oh,
when I go there and I roll up in my used Toyota and my Costco jeans, like the stank face that I see, man, and you know, I mean, and they can barely hide it. They don't even
Mhm.
hide it. Just like, oh, you're from Santa Maria, aren't you? Like I can
Yeah,
tell.
oh, fuck yeah.
Can
You
smell it
definitely
on
feel
you,
it out there because there's definitely some areas out there like there's some money here.
dude. Santa Ynez. I mean, my
There's some
Neverland Ranch. Neverland Ranch.
that's not too far from you.
I mean, one of my first main political actions was protesting the war in front of worldwide media at the Jackson trial because it happened in my city because San Ynez Valley, Michael
Mhm.
Jackson's living out there, Bo Derek's living out there, David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash is fucking hitting joggers with his Tesla, paying him off $1 million or whatever, probably coming home from a wine tasting. Just kidding. Sorry, Mr. Crosby, I don't mean that. But yeah, man, dude, class, in Santa Maria, when this whole thing started, we were the brunt of the death rate. Farm workers dying alone in Motel 6, right? Because and I mean, take a look at the crop report. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry every year.
Mhm.
Every year, I've seen white boy programmers like IT guys where on Facebook where you see their job is they're an IT guy for one of these farming companies and they're calling Oaxacan people roaches and shit like that. So yeah, so that's what we have going on out here. So I totally get what you're saying, but like I guess
And he's
something that I
let's not get it twisted. I think he's a shitty guy. Grievous is a shitty guy in the movie. Be honest.
but something Michael Brooks said is he called him a clown fascist, right?
Mhm.
And he kind of, I don't know if he coined it, but he would use it a lot. And it's the kind of thing where it's like just because he does like, and everyone says that he doesn't have an ideology, doesn't mean like it's not. I don't know. It's not dangerous that he doesn't have some kind of ideological, like being that ruthlessly for yourself and money. That Roy Cohn like attack mode.
Gordon
That
Gekko. I mean, let's
yeah,
let's keep it pop culture.
yeah,
Go watch Wall Street and then go read Mike Davis, City of Quartz,
yeah.
or any book that talks about the financialization of the economy during the Reagan era.
Man,
Like that's important.
there's a documentary on Netflix, like a multi-parter about Trump, and it's really weird how they say Trump's arc really begins in the Reagan years. Like,
Deregulation.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he built the new Trump Tower on like no taxes or something. Like,
Loans, crazy loans he was able to get
yeah,
that he wouldn't have been able to get before all the deregulation. I mean,
yeah.
it's if you look at if we just let's just stay in pop culture and try to find like references so it's understandable for people.
You bet. Get to the point also where Biden is Palpatine.
Well, so if you watch the movies, Palpatine's constantly pulling these strings, and he's coming out like savior, right? Even
Mhm.
to young Anakin, I am the savior that will
Yeah.
save your wife that you're
Yep.
not supposed to have. It's our little secret,
Yeah.
and he's gonna save the Republic, and the only way to save the Republic is he needs to get elected. And wasn't that the narrative for after the defeat of Bernie Sanders, after that crazy Super Tuesday power pull by the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Everybody's feelings got hurt because people put all their eggs into the electoral politic basket.
Yep.
And if Biden is Palpatine, which I don't think he's really that fucking calculating and smart, but if again, Bronco Marketech, I think that's his name, has a book called.
What if, really quick, what if Palpatine was more like Joe Biden? Ooh, what's that? I can't. There's a heavy glare on it.
Sorry, let me see if I can turn my ring light down.
Yesterday's Man. Whoa. Yeah, man.
It's a really good book about Joe Biden and his trajectory. Fuck, if Palpatine talked like Joe Biden,
Yeah.
no one would listen to him. But Joe Biden
You
has
know,
been part of the.
there was a Sith Lord who figured out how to defeat death, and you know the thing, Anakin. You know.
Annie, you know the thing.
Oh my
The
God.
zzz. Hit him with the zzz.
Oh my God.
Power Annie.
Oh my
And you
God.
can do Jedi shit like that black guy.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
You know, I really like Mace Windu. He's articulate. He's clean.
The future of the Republic is when black Jedis and
God.
ones with those long tendrily things on their heads will be in commercials together. They're in commercials now, man.
You know, Jawas are just as good as droids. Oh my God.
So yeah, that's Joe Biden, and so if the goal was we're going to get rid of this guy that everybody thinks is the end all be all, he's the clown fascist, he's the ruiner of society, then we're going to bring in Joe Biden, the neoliberal that was part of the crew that really undid all of the New Deal era programs and was an austerity person.
Mm-hmm.
You get Clarence Thomas during Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of tough on crime rhetoric. You get a lot more wars during Joe Biden. This is before he's even this is when he's still Senator Biden.
Yep.
He was pushing for conflict.
Bankruptcy bill, the crime bill.
So, but there's been a lot of, if people really want, especially if you're a Californian, Mike Davis writes these amazing books. They're very thick, but it's great histories on California that
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis. He wrote
Cool.
City of Quartz.
Okay.
That you can use as analogous for even now or anywhere else you live in the country when it comes to tough on crime. And that's why movies like Boys in the Hood, again, taking it back to pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
You watch a movie like Boys in the Hood, and there's kind of one theme, and that is, A, these people are bad inherently.
Mm-hmm.
The police, we need more of them because when we have problems, they're just not there to save us.
Yep.
People forget that was definitely a theme. If you're not old enough to remember, I was there when they were shooting. My stepmom used to make popcorn for us so we could watch the crack house raids next door or across the street. It was like Benny Hill.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Damn.
And that was the mid to late 80s through the early 90s for me.
Yeah.
And then things started to change a little bit. But the rhetoric out of the black community was, you got to be tough on crime, and you definitely got to be tough on drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really good book, if you've read New Jim Crow, which is pretty good,
mm-hmm.
A great follow-up for that is James Foreman's Jr. Locking Up Our Own, where the book starts off, he's a black man, defending a young black man on a first offense, a violent crime, with a black judge. The cop that arrested him was black. The bailiff was black. And the DA that was trying to give him, I forget how many years, was black.
Oh my gosh.
So
there we are.
There we are. So when you go back and watch those movies, it never tells you the story of how. It always starts in the middle of, I live in this shithole violent area and I just don't know why it's violent. And the only way I'm ever going to get solace is to leave said area. I'm going to go to college and leave said area, and then everything is going to be fine.
Man.
And there's not really an analysis of, I mean, Boys in the Hood starts off with the black on black crime narrative. That's the first scene in the movie. And Menace to Society isn't much better. So, there's no real talk of deindustrialization. There's no real talk of, and again, how can you tell all that in a movie? But there's no real kind of showing that industry died. And the programs that were put in place were not put in place to put people back to work.
Wow.
That's a problem. That's what Torrey Reed writes about in Towards Freedom. Great book. That's a non-zero book. See, I'm showing up for Torrey now.
What? I couldn't hear you. You went away from the mic. Not on zero books?
So that's a non-zero book. And I'm
cool. You've already dropped a lot of books. I'm like, I got to make a list. But that's really interesting because, when you think of the media and the pop culture that's fed to white America, right? Mm-hmm. A couple franchises my wife and I binged over the holidays were Home Alone because it's the holidays, and then one of my favorites, Back to the Future, right?
I've never seen 3.
Oh well, if you're not that into westerns, okay, whatever. But
I've never seen it.
I love it. I just love Back to the Future. I love Christopher Lloyd and Marty Fox are just geniuses. I love them. Anyway, yes. Fanboy. I saw it when I was really young. You know those movies you see when you're really young.
Oh, I went to the theater to see part 2.
Yeah. Oh, and Biff as Donald Trump as Biff. They were pretty heavy-handed with that part. But in just like the first Back to the Future, for instance, the way that they depict the 50s. As first they introduced the town square, which is like a Universal Studios lot, right? With the bell tower, and in the 80s when Marty McFly is skateboarding around, everything's dirty. There's homeless guys sleeping on the bench, and everything sucks, and there's trash in the street. And then he goes back to the 50s, and the whole thing is everything's clean, and all the kids have money to go get soda or, at the soda shop, and there's all this stuff, and then it's when he comes back to his present, 1985 at the very end, the flaming tire tracks, and then he looks and this homeless guy sits up on the bench, and there's all this trash everywhere. He goes, "I'm home," right? And only earlier in the movie, Doc Brown asks him, "All right, future boy, who's president in 1985?" And he's like, "Ronald Reagan." He's like, "Reagan, the actor," and he just laughs at him. Yeah. So the politics are very surface level there. But I remember Home Alone, the way that family, everyone remarks about it now, how did this dad afford this giant house? And
funniest meme ever.
Yeah, and all these plane tickets and all this stuff.
First class tickets to Paris.
Exactly. And then again in the next one, right? Mm-hmm. First class tickets to Florida. But when you watch the third one, that was 89
Without
and 90.
Him, yeah.
Yeah, and then the third one comes out, and the kid is a latchkey kid. He's sick at home, and his parents have to go to work. And the funny thing about Home Alone is it's adult writers writing a kid's dialogue, and the kid even says "It's the times." He just shrugs.
That's interesting because if you think about the first 2 Home Alones, and I think John Hughes had a lot to do with that. And I don't know if John Hughes is from the suburbs of Chicago, but he definitely depicts the suburbs of Chicago very well.
Interesting.
That being said, Have you ever been to the suburbs of Chicago?
Never been. Never been
Because
anywhere
it's
near.
pretty fucking white in the suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're the only people that live there,
Hmm.
but but you're around
Pretty.
some real deal money. So when
Yeah.
you think about movies like Home Alone to Ferris Bueller,
Oh, yeah.
remember Ferris Bueller has all this shit in his room. I watched that movie like recently, and I was like, that's still some dope shit to have in your room today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Like, and the places that he thought even to go to were places that as a teenager I would never think to go to the most expensive restaurant in a city like Chicago, and
Yeah.
I live right next to San Francisco,
Yeah.
and I would
Yeah.
never think let's cut school and go to this restaurant that we definitely can't afford.
Yeah. This doesn't make
No,
sense.
no,
This
we would have
doesn't make
cut
sense.
school and went to fucking Taco Bell and all shared a nacho.
Oh my, yeah, I remember my first year of college. It was like those chicken sandwiches at Wendy's are $1. Like of course everybody
He's
spent
a
all their
high
money on
school
weed.
kid.
Yeah,
Remember, they steal his friend's dad's priceless Porsche.
yeah, yeah,
That's in one of the most beautiful garages you've ever seen.
yeah.
And it's supposed to be this moment you feel sorry for him. He's like, my dad's going to have to talk to me now. Yeah. Yeah, he's going to have to talk to you. But I'm sure your dad has crazy fucking insurance.
I got you one better. You remember the car that at the end of Back to the Future 1 where he goes into the garage and there's
Black
this
truck.
flashy black 4-wheel drive Toyota truck?
Really nice truck.
Yeah, that like it's actually why Crispin Glover isn't in the second and third movie. He like didn't like that. Oh, they have money now just because of whatever. He didn't like the messaging. But that truck, that same model of truck, is what I ended up buying used from an oil field worker out here on the Central Coast. Like, dude, like
Really?
straight up, like
I would have been kind of stoked if I were you.
dude, it was disgusting. Primer gray, covered, like the whole inside was matted down. My wife cried when I brought it home. Yeah, she's just like, what did you do? Like, why did you spend our money on this? It was terrible. But we called it Rusty. We called it Rusty, Dusty, but Trusty because that car, we rode it
Back
to
to
the
the
end.
Future, babe. And she was like, yeah, I give a fuck.
Yeah, we're back in time. Like just cranking up Huey Lewis.
Fly
But
your ass upside the head with that skateboard if you don't take that shit back.
oh my god. Oh my god. It was so bad. Um, damn. So, what do you see like right now as a musician as like politics and music? Like, where do you see? Is there anybody doing that right now? Or are they all just underground? We could dovetail this in to talk about the band that you named you used a song title for your piece that got you taken off of Facebook.
The Dead Kennedys, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, okay then. Well, who do you see anything in the landscape today that is remotely political in popular music?
No. Popular music, no. Because if you think about music, again, you want to use music and politics as some sort of metaphor. When you have this huge consolidation of power. Now, and when I wasn't touring, I worked for very large music festivals, Coachella, EDC, Firefly, you name it. If it was a
Okay. Yeah.
big music festival with like 80,000 people, I was there.
Wait. Cool.
So, I really hate the music. So, when you look at these music festivals that they book so far out, you're booking it based off of like album sales.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're booking it based off like there was a poll start numbers, like how many people are they bringing to venues. And what was starting to happen was, the bigger tour or the bigger festivals were paying a fuck ton of money to get these artists. And so now you're seeing you were seeing a consolidation of smaller music venues by the promotions companies. So AEG, a Golden Voice who does Coachella, we're buying up venues all over California. I don't know if they bought up any by you, and they can control who goes in and out of those venues. And it was becoming a bit of an issue for small venue people because they were saying, I'm not going to be able to compete with the talent that you can bring in because you can afford to pay that guy double what I would afford to pay him to pack my house. Because your goal isn't to have him necessarily sell out this 200 seat room. You want to pay him more to sell out the 200 seat room You might even pay them a little bit more to sell out the 1,500 seat room. And by the time they get to the point where you can get them on the Coachella stage, well, now you can be like, well, you're going to take the discount because you're my artist.
Okay.
So if I control that level of the industry, I'm definitely controlling what I want to see at a higher level. So how do you break through at that point to get in front of that many people?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be because you got the hottest song on the fucking internet. Even there's even politics to that. You got to get on the right playlist. How do you get on the right playlist? It's not just because someone's thumbing around fucking shuffling. No. The payola that existed in the radio days definitely existed. They exist now.
Mm-hmm. That's basically how I understood Spotify and the streaming platforms is like, oh, like the old system, the feudal system of like the record labels. They've just found a way to like transfer that online. Is that how you see it? Or
look at a guy like Steve Aoki, the DJ, extremely popular.
Yeah,
comes from your hood, a little bit down the road from you. Santa Barbara area, right?
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Comes from Stupid Money. That's Benihana money.
You know who else came from Stupid Money in Santa Barbara? Katy Perry.
Oh, no shit. I didn't know that.
Preacher money in Santa Barbara.
Stupid Money.
Yep.
So when you start to peel back the onion of these fucking stories of these hardworking artists, Miley Cyrus is on top of the rock charts.
She's an institution.
Stupid Money.
Yep. A lot of achy breaky heart money there.
And when you can't tour, when local band Joe can't tour to even get out there to try to get in front of more people or to open for that larger artist and maybe overtake them in popularity, that does kind of sort of happen. What are you left with in this streaming era? Only powerful people that were selling a fuck ton of records are going to be the only ones that can really make money. Your friend that had local band X, are you going to pay $10 to see them stream a concert that you could just stand outside of the door and hear? Probably not. So who's really making money right now? There's a lot of people that I've seen with platinum records because of the studio that I was in. Motherfuckers is hurting right now. There's an elite in the music industry too that's okay right now.
Yeah.
And when all this shit gets back to normal, who the fuck do you think is going to be able to actually do shit?
Afford to go out and tour and all that, yeah.
It ain't going to be me and my band Bitter Lake. I had to take a loan out on my car to do the last tour that we did because it was an opportunity to play in front of a lot more people with a much larger band internationally.
Wow.
And nobody else in the band had money at the time, and it was an opportunity that we had to do. Right now, I'm looking at hopefully not getting my car repossessed because I can't afford the payment to pay it back.
Jesus.
We didn't get paid what we were told we were going to get paid on the tour.
That's a story as old as touring.
As old as time.
Yeah.
And you know what dumbass people tell you? Well, why don't you sue? Did you have a contract? Fuck am I going to sue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That shit takes time.
And money.
That shit takes time. Yeah, it takes time and money that we don't have. So when I get to the joint and they go, okay, well, the two whatever we were going to pay you, we only got $80 and we're going to give it to you in Canadian dollars.
Oh, man.
What am I going to do? Tell them to go get fucked and drive back from Toronto? Or am I going to take it and mumble, grumble, and drive to Montreal and do it all again?
Damn, man.
So the music industry is going to look, and also we've lost so many small venues. So it's going to look very, very different. And you can just take that and then put that on any other industry. Look at what's happening to small restaurants getting bought up by larger chains. There was a whole article on that in like the Business Insider.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to read Business Insider and Bloomberg.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to know what these rich fucks are thinking and what they're up to.
Like people are like, you read, yeah, I pay a little bit of money because of the show I do, and I read Business Insider because I want to. They're not going to lie to me about that article. It's not fake news. It really did happen. The whole piece was about how great it's going to be for the stock prices for Chipotle and Starbucks that are buying out these small strip mall places.
God. It's like here in California, we deal with wildfires all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like the metaphor is like the wildfires come through and they will burn down the old dying trees and let like new ones flourish. Mm-hmm. We have the opposite here where it's burning everything, all the saplings, all the seeds underneath, and leaving these old, these giant, redwoods to, dominate the landscape. And that's what's really terrifying to me. And it's just so weird that like we all have to, we're all going through hell right now. You can't pay off your, you're having trouble paying off your fucking car. I have to choose between, a root canal and extraction. Can't afford the root canal. You know what I mean?
Take that bitch out. Yeah, take that bitch out.
Take it out. That's all I can afford, right?
I'm with you, homeboy.
Yeah,
I'm with you, homeboy. I take it out.
Yeah, and I wear it proud, man. Fuck it. I can't afford implants or whatever. But and we have to sit here and watch the stock market continue to climb. And like, oh gee, look, Elon Musk, he overtook Jeff Bezos. I guess we should, with our fucking money, because so much of his industries are subsidized by our tax dollars. Mm-hmm. So we get to watch them like run away with all our money. And we're all terrified to go out. We're all ordering Amazon, whatever.
But that's why we do this, right? We go back and we watch those movies. We tell that story. It gets us fired up. Because we don't have grand narratives on the left to get us fired up. Because smart people ruin that shit, right? They go, the right loves these fucking narratives.
Yeah.
And then we read books like this. The real story of people forming unions of people with debt and saying, fuck you, we're not going to pay. And even during the odious reign of Betsy DeVos, they got, I forget how many millions of dollars back in student loans by forming a debtors union against Corinthians College that, falsely told those kids to sign up and pay all this money for make-believe college that was worthless. God. So there is power in numbers. My boy Chris Smalls trying to unionize the largest corporation in the world. Why are we not talking about that? Why do I give a fuck about what Jimmy Dore says about who does what, who doesn't do what? I don't care. I don't care. Because there's real people out there doing real work. In your community somewhere, there's real people doing real shit. Trying to help real people.
Yeah, the Uber drivers in here in California who are taking it to the Supreme Court, taking that Prop 22 bullshit to the Supreme Court.
Because a lot of people that were driving Uber and Lyft, and you and I probably know some cats out there who was driving Uber and Lyft that was like, I can't have that prop not go through because it's going to be good for me if it goes through, because they were reading the bullshit.
I did DoorDash for a time. Dark time.
You and me both.
It was
we got some kindred spirits here,
yeah. I was driving Cal Poly kids freaking Chipotle burritos across town, I mean, I literally one time I delivered like a burrito to a girl from a restaurant she could have walked to in less than 5 minutes. And then a couple hours later brought her a Starbucks drink, like total separate order. So, I've been there. It was dark, but I was still getting the fucking emails from DoorDash about that prop, even though I hadn't done it like in months and months and months. I hadn't driven or
Come
been
put the
paid.
flyers in the bag.
Yeah. Oh my God. And yeah, and just like, hey, like, and that's the thing. I remember like I was like slowing down and doing it, and then I get an email like in app, and then an email, and it was like a message in app and an email, and it was like, oh hey, we're gonna start giving you all your tips now. Sorry, we weren't doing that before.
And you're like, word?
Yeah. Wow, I'm a winner. I'm winning now. I'm ahead in this relationship. I have the freedom to work when I want, Jason.
They again, when the wrong people control the narrative, we're stuck in that fucking forever feedback loop of that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start fucking forming our own grand narratives for the world that we want, well, then maybe we can start to actually do some shit to change. And the movement that had happened for AB 5 to even be a thing, which wasn't perfect legislation. Let's just be real. The California Assembly Bill 5, part of that legislation was like, we'll give you a minimum wage, but you motherfuckers better not unionize.
God damn.
That was like the agreement. And even that was too much for Uber and Lyft, who are trying to do this right now on the East Coast. And I'm sure you saw that article, because I think it affects you, because Vons is down there by you. The Vons markets fired all their union drivers, and they're just going to go through DoorDash.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So this legislation was a war on labor. And I think when we talk about socialist movements, people look at it through the lens of electoral politics, and they look at it through the lens of it's just healthcare and maybe housing and just
It's
a
labor.
better life.
It's labor.
You know, it's labor. And if you're not looking at it from the standpoint of labor, then you're kind of missing the point.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't give a shit about Marx or Lenin, or if Stalin was a bad guy or not, if you don't even want to get into those discussions, just get into the labor side of things, because that affects you now.
Yeah. Go listen to a Woody Guthrie song. You know what I mean? Woody Guthrie, a white Oklahoman migrant farm worker in the Great Depression. You know that famous picture of the Great Depression of the woman like with her hand on her, and her kids. That was in Napomo. That was a couple miles, like literally a stone's throw, a couple miles from where I sit. And so yeah, I mean it's always been labor. I mean that's where America's true left, movement came from. Yeah, they did elect a wacky billionaire character or whatever, FDR, but like it was a labor movement. And that's why the guy you said, "What I give a fuck what he thinks," but just the whole idea of like attacking the nurses union for not jumping on a hashtag, right? It's absolutely embarrassing, and it's astounding that people think that we can, that we're gonna make progress, electorally, if that's your goal, without the teachers unions, without the nurses unions, without the flight attendant, all the different unions. And right now our unions are not in a good place. Like
we're very small with unions. But let's think about this. Boots Riley was on Brianna Joy Gray's show a little while ago, and I saw some. I'm falling out of love with Brianna Joy Gray.
A lot of us are. The honeymoon is over.
It's a little over. But she can win me back. He was talking about all these wildcat strikes that had happened in the last year.
Yeah.
And I think about West Virginia. And I don't know if you've ever been to West Virginia, but I've been to West Virginia a lot.
Yeah.
Like a really lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think all the teachers in the state of West Virginia shared the same political views.
No, probably not.
But when it came time and they understood that only collectively they could have power enough to flex to get those needs met. And the same thing in Los Angeles. And when you listen to the needs they had, it wasn't as simple as just more money and smaller class size and maybe some new books. It was like, we need affordable housing.
Yeah.
We need adequate access to healthcare.
Yeah.
There were real fundamental issues that were wrong with the system that these people wanted to fix. And also keep in mind, they still wanted to teach kids at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So when you read a book like Welcome to Rebellion and you go back and watch Star Wars and you watch it from the standpoint of like, is this a working class rebellion that we see here? Maybe not. Because isn't Princess Leia part of the aristocracy?
Yeah. Yep.
But did she betray her class interests? If you're a fan of the New Deal, like my very good friend Harvey J.K.
Oh yeah, Harvey J.K.
Harvey J. Shout out to Harvey J.K. G and a half. Harvey J.K. is
Yeah.
an awesome individual. I love that man to death. That's like everybody's favorite grandpa.
I need to grab one of his books. I loved. Oh man, I got to grab his Thomas Paine book. I'm really interested in
Yeah.
that.
No, he's a great guy. Have him on your show.
I got those Pearlstein books. I got Nixonland and Reaganland. I want to try to get through those.
Ooh, let me know how. I'll trade you when you get done Reaganland. Any book I have that you want to read, let me know and I'll trade you.
What a guy! What a guy! Thanks, man. Wow. So I don't want to keep you forever. I know you got a kid and everything. Let me know how much longer you can go for.
They're not upstairs yet. Until you see a little beige child running here.
Oh.
You say, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, daddy,
Oh.
daddy, 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 drums, daddy."
Is he playing music?
His mom thought it was a good idea to buy a drum set.
Blame the mom. Good job.
I am.
I
don't want that little bastard to have a drum set.
Oh man, that's funny. Because you don't play drums, right? Or do you?
I play guitar.
Yeah.
I learned how to play drums. Like I taught myself how to play, but I'm not very good.
That's me too. I'm started with piano, but I got guitars. I play mandolin. I play all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's dope. Are you a chicken picking guy? Because you play country? Can you do chicken picking?
Dude, yes. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I did a concert last year, coming up on a year, for Mississippi John Hurt's birthday.
No shit.
You know Mississippi John Hurt?
The is it blues artist?
Yeah. And he was a, like, they call it chicken picking, but finger style, really. And he like his parents were freed by the Civil War, and I mean he recorded one of his first. Trying to remember which song it was, like maybe Frankie and Johnny, before Robert Johnson. Right? So his like earliest recordings are before Robert Johnson, and then he just went back to Mississippi sharecropping, never be heard from until the folk revival, and someone went and found him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even have a guitar. But this is interesting. I love fingerstyle, and so I play that style. I did a show of pretty much all his music, and I bought this book about him, and like just learning about the South and just how things changed, like how the railroad changed the South, and that's how he was able to get to New York. And the poor dude was just like terrified to be in New York on his own and like try to get to the recording studio and all this. But get this, Mississippi John Hurt wrote all these songs. Guys like Jerry Garcia are cutting their own versions of them, in the 60s and all the way up into the 90s. All kinds of people are cherish this guy's music, got their style, their chops, learning his stuff. He's got a teeny tiny little like museum that was built like in his hometown in Mississippi. His like son was a mechanic, his mother's name, I believe, his mother's maiden name was McCain. Granddaddy of John McCain. Yeah, great grandfather of Megan, or what's her name on The View?
Meghan McCain.
Meghan McCain, yeah. So that will tell you a little something about, this guy's a Library of Congress, cherished folk artist, like founder of one of the most transformative styles of music we have. And Meghan McCain gets to sit on The View and bitch, moan, and complain when she'd be lucky to be a fucking Waffle House.
She's got an
assistant manager.
Van Jones, apparently.
Huh?
Meghan McCain's got a new show with Van Jones, apparently.
Oh. Man, that's
I did a whole show about Van Jones. I have a friend of mine that has been dealing with him for 25 years in the activist world. And then she had referred me a professor that came on the show. He just wrote a new book, and we on our Patreon talked about Van Jones for like an hour and 20 minutes. And he went off telling some real Van Jones stories about Van Jones being kind of a piece of shit from like the 90s.
Oh God. He never, I don't know. It's just like every time I see a clip of him, I'm just like, who's this guy? Like, where does he come from? Like, what's his mindset? I don't understand it.
He's the best opportunist there is, because he can do things that other opportunists can't, like cry on command.
That's what I was gonna say. It's always like when he cries. Um, but hey, man, tell me about this piece you wrote. I read it, of course.
Okay.
But do you think it was the headline that got you taken down? Everybody, Jason lost his Facebook account with
I
like
did.
years of family photos, and
Yeah.
when they
Didn't
remind you
back
of
anything
shit you
up.
forgot happened, memories, and all of
Hmm.
that. Jason's
Gone.
lost it for good because he
They
wrote an
deleted my
opinion
account.
piece with a headline which was
Kill the poor.
"Kill the Poor."
Kill, 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 kill the poor. The Dead Kennedy song.
Yeah,
The original headline was like the myth of American exceptionalism and its relation to justice and poverty. That
Das
doesn't sound.
Kapital, bro.
Yeah, right. Right?
Dude,
Who am I writing it for? And then you start asking yourself a certain question when you
oh.
do everything. When you wake up in the morning and do your show, and you decide, I'm going to do a Joe Payne show. You
Mhm,
have to decide yourself, who is a Joe Payne show going to be for? Because sometimes when we're friends with some of these people, like Ben Burgess,
mhm.
you get the Ben Burgess crowd,
Yep.
right?
Well,
Very
I
well,
called
very
into
well.
the Majority Report and I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get some Majority Report crowd coming my way.
That's a Majority Report crowd. So that
Yeah,
some of it's probably going to be pretty cool.
yeah. I'm a
But
part of that crowd. I'll admit. I listen.
I saw your clip on there. I thought it was cool. I was like, man, he really came in there and nailed it. I
Thanks,
hope.
buddy.
I think I wrote. I said, I hope you get some good new listeners
I
for this
did. I'm
one.
not caught up with you yet, but I got like 60 new
Good. Fuck
subs.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Um. So I was like, that's not who I'm writing this for.
Yeah,
Because my whole show was supposed to be a nuanced barbershop conversation of just dudes on the corner talking shit.
that's cool.
So let me make the title something that resonates a little bit more. Mind you, I am friends with East Bay Ray of the Dead Kennedys on Facebook
Dude,
because of the studio that I'm at
that's
and
so
the
cool.
right. So I'm not thinking this is a bad thing. There's black metal bands on Facebook that have way worse imagery
Yeah.
than that title. And ultimately, the picture that I used was a picture of a woman that just got put to death recently, a woman named Lisa Montgomery.
Hmm.
And I told the story, a real story of me going into a grocery store in San Leandro, California, and seeing a homeless man in that store, and the reaction people had to that man, and my feeling of uselessness because there was no service I could offer him other than maybe a couple bucks.
Hmm.
And it's a little colder right now where I am in the Bay Area, and I know from working in the shelter hotels, they're all booked up and they're closing. And there's just no one that cares about a very vulnerable population. The only reason why we have those hotels in California was because there was a big fucking push on a grassroots level for the administration in the state to do something about this very vulnerable population. And
Hmm.
so last minute we got what we got.
Hmm.
Um, it could use some tweaks. It ain't perfect, but I couldn't even offer this gentleman that for shelter. So it fucks with me when I have to see people like that because I also lived so close to such a very large homeless encampment for so many years.
Hmm.
And when I say so close, I think I've sent you pictures or maybe I've posted pictures. You might have seen them. It's across the street from me. If you've seen Boots Riley's movie, Sorry to Bother You, this scene where the guy's driving down the street by the homeless encampments, that's my building. Those homeless encampments are across the street. Those are my neighbors. I
Damn.
know those people. They didn't build anything out for that. That was a straight shot. And that camp is so much bigger than it was even during that movie shooting.
Damn.
And so seeing that and then turning on, I was listening to Democracy Now! On my way back. They were like, Lisa Montgomery was the first one to get put to death in like almost 70 years. And then knowing her story from reading a Guardian piece like a few days before.
Hmm.
And then I had wrote something on Centoya Brown like maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, because I read her story like 5, 6 years ago before it was a meme, the meme du jour. And it's a complicated story. And a lot of these stories are complicated. And we have to. The story of Centoya Brown wasn't the story that the meme made so easy to digest of a girl and sex trafficking. Like, first of all, a lot of people don't know that the term sex trafficking isn't what you think it is. She wasn't put in a car and sent over a border.
No,
That
that's
could be
hardly
from
ever
one
what it
hotel
is.
room to the next.
Yeah.
That's sex trafficking now.
No,
And that,
I won an award for a story I wrote about sex trafficking. And it's like it's more commonly family members pimping out their own children.
thank you.
Yep.
And her story is, well, it's not one of family, but it's definitely not as simple as it sounds. And Lisa Montgomery's story is more of that, where her mom was pimping her out for
Yeah.
as a child, like a 14-year-old child, for like
Oh,
house repair.
and I should say it's not like you said, not just family, but people they know, the grooming process, et cetera, et cetera. Like children who are, being told that all of this is normal, this is what you do. That's what trafficking most commonly looks like in the United States.
It's yeah, thank you. And I think because of the way Hollywood frames that terminology,
Hmm.
we see it as like an Asian woman or a Eastern European being hoodwinked
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
handcuffed.
Or
And
locked
that
up in
does
a
happen.
shipping
But it's
container or something. Yeah.
and if you spent time, Joe Payne,
Yeah.
talking to people that worked in the sex industry, then you've heard the same stories that I've heard that destroy you. Rapes at very young ages from family members to people that the family trusted, or the family finds out about it and they just don't do anything about it because we don't talk about that shit in this family.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what does that do to the person's psyche? So in the hotels, you're supposed to have either severe mental illness or be elderly. You know how many young people we had in there that were not elderly, that had severe mental illness from just years of sexual trauma? And then the
Yep.
only way to get by is by using what you know how to use.
Yep.
So these stories of these women that end up committing these horrible crimes were not addressing the trauma of how they come up. And a lot of times how they come up is like in some severe poverty shit.
Hmm. Severe abuse, severe survival instincts are kicking in.
Oh,
There were like, but we don't have a justice system like that has anywhere like any ounce of I don't know, empathy or capacity to meet on that level. And I remember when I did this story, there was like a nonprofit that was receiving like funding in our county that was just to rehabilitate young women and some boys who had been trafficked. And that story, like you said, of being raped as a child and all these other factors, and just trying to rebuild a person and just reconfigure their whole outlook and ideas of self worth. I mean, and that those are the lucky ones. They're the ones who got out of
yeah.
it and got help. And it's an uphill slog, and the whole path is greased, and you don't have any handholds or footholds. So
There's not a lot of resources for you. And so then take that and then go, the next thing Amy Goodman says is like, and the US set another record in coronavirus deaths.
yeah.
And I think that day was like 4,200 or 4,700. And then unemployment figures were touching what they were in March when the pandemic and the shutdown first started. So you have this consolidation of wealth at the top.
Mm-hmm.
This is the largest transfer of wealth we've seen since the Gilded Era,
This is the new
from the
Gilded
Trump
Age.
tax cuts
Yep.
in 2017.
Yep.
And the first CARES Act is a humongous bailout to these industries that went ahead and laid people off.
Anyway,
Disney laid
yeah.
off like 36,000. The
Yep.
airline industry laid off thousands. We didn't
Mm.
see manufacturing come back like Trump said it was going to come back, that he ran on it coming back.
Of course not.
And here we are at this moment where his administration, in trying to be a fake ass Duterte, which my last guest Dylan Rodriguez pointed out to me oh so poignantly, that Trump or Duterte is not a wannabe Trump. He's not Trump of the tropics. Trump is a wannabe Duterte from the Philippines,
Yeah.
because Duterte kills with impunity, gives
Yeah.
no fucks.
Absolutely.
Watch the Thousand Cuts documentary on PBS.
Oh my God.
And so you see Donald Trump be so steadfast in his promise to be a strong man in killing these 10 people that were just kind of languishing on death row, that probably would have languished there till they expired. And you have a woman that's severely mentally ill,
Yeah.
that committed a heinous crime.
Yeah.
Let's not act like she didn't do anything wrong. She wasn't in
Yeah.
prison because they got the wrong person. Oh, she did it, and it was fucked up. She doesn't know what she's fucking doing.
Yep.
And we have to ask ourselves as a society, in the Centoya Brown case, are we okay with putting children on death row? Are we okay with killing the mentally ill? Bill Clinton did it to prove a point.
Yeah. The dude.
His run up.
Yeah. The dude's left some of his last meal there because he thought he would be able to come back and have more. Like
That's
that was the
world
capacity
we live in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. It's a bloodthirsty. Our society is a machine, and there are millions of people who are just ground up in the gears of it and just tossed aside like just slough or grist for the mill. I mean, I've always been astounded by that, the callousness and just the complete lack of empathy, and then I don't know, man, because this is another thing. Like, as a journalist, I've like. One of the things you can't avoid. I think a lot of journalists have this, where they're kind of true crime buffs, because it's like a whole sect of journalism. So it's like a lot of us have like an encyclopedic knowledge of like serial killers, and we were watching there's a really good Netflix series on the Night Stalker.
I just watched it last night and had to watch 2 comedies to cleanse my palate.
Dude, you have to. So like we went in the 80s from I mean, if you've seen Mindhunter, which I hope you have, right, on Netflix, where
No, I have not seen it.
Oh dude, it's incredible. Fincher, right? But so when you have the idea of a serial killer is defined in the 70s, right? So and then it's during the age of the serial killer, right? You have like multiple serial killers active in the Bay Area, at that time. Whether it's the the co-ed killer Kemper, or the Golden State Killer and D'Angelo, who they just finally have convicted. But in the 80s especially, it was Zodiac in the Bay, where you're at, who had everybody living in terror, and then frickin' Ramirez in LA and the Hillside Strangler.
Who came up to the Bay. He killed more people.
Yes, he did. And like in the 80s, you had people cheering, and like when they executed Bundy, you could hear the crowd outside chanting, "Burn Bundy, burn." And the people in LA, lined up ready, to watch him get convicted. This celebration of like the carceral state, and even with true crime, there's a struggle, because it's sometimes it's really good propaganda, true crime. But the more you look into true crime, you realize the true incompetence. Samuel Little. You see all these stories about Samuel Little? The most prolific serial killer we've ever seen. Why did they never find him? Why do you think?
Well, I thought the Night Stalker kind of showed us how incompetent police was, because at the end of the day, they didn't find him, right? The cops were mad that the SF police chief was like, "This is what he looks like," and then
the fucking barrio took him down. The neighborhood
took him down.
The neighborhood took him down,
and he was saved by the police. A friend of mine punched Richard Ramirez in the stomach.
Wait, what was that?
A friend of mine punched Richard Ramirez in the stomach.
He was one of the people?
No.
Oh.
In prison.
Wow. That's a great story.
It is a very funny story. He told me he was new to that tier and didn't really know who he was, and dude was getting mouthy with another prisoner, and they were fighting over him, and he was a new guy, so he had to like, "Hey, you can't do this," and he said, dude. He could tell it better, and I don't know if he would want to, but yeah.
When a dude on death row goes, "Do you know who I am?"
He,
Starts using
I
Karen
actually
excuses.
asked if he did that, and he said no, he didn't.
Oh my
He
god,
literally didn't really understand. He was just so new
that's
that
so
everything
funny.
was going on around him.
That's
Like,
so funny. That's
but
hilarious.
but you know,
Our society like revels in that shit.
but we also make the monster, right?
Yeah.
These conditions are monster making conditions. Check this out. Tell me what you think this kid's going to do. I don't know. His story isn't written yet. I know a kid that's 11, 12 years old. He's been living in a car for a good portion of his life. And he reads okay. He can get by. He could read signs and maybe order off of a menu. Math, can't tell time on a regular clock. Hasn't been to school in 7 years.
Jeez.
I don't know the other abuses that have happened to him, but I know in his short life, he's seen more than some grown men have seen. What is his future going to be? Just for him and his family, like his brothers and stuff, I was able to get a teaching program in the school for him. And once I left the shelter, they cut the program. It was all free for them. It wasn't like it cost them money. I got books donated, and one of the teachers was another homeless woman that used to teach before she lost everything.
Oh my god.
That loved teaching these kids, and the kids loved going to her. And they just said, no, we're not going to deal with it because you just don't want to deal with it. So what does that tell this young man about the world around him? Who is he listening to? Who are his influences going to be? If I let him down, well, then I ain't shit anymore. Jeez. So that's why I wrote that piece, to kind of remind us that sometimes we make these monsters that we are so frightened of. Richard Ramirez did not just one day decide to smoke buttloads of fucking crack, shoot heroin, and smoke meth and kill old people. And the odious part of what he did that I didn't know about, that I think if people would have known about, he wouldn't have had all the fans, was molest all those children.
Mm-hmm.
But those were the only ones he let go.
Yep. Well, dude, I mean, his uncle, who fought in Vietnam, was showing him pictures of people he'd beheaded in Vietnam. So, like, I mean, you know, that's America, like, very directly showing him the way. His working class family, you know, ground up in the gears of the war machine, and like, this is what we do. This is what it is to be an American.
To be a man.
Say what?
I said to be a man.
Yeah, to be a man. Wasn't his another one of his things that happened was, I don't know if it was the same cousin or some other family member, like blew his lady away with a shotgun right in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and he was raped too, wasn't he? Raped as well?
Probably. I can't. It's hard to remember all of it.
So again, monsters are made.
One thing to add to that:
monstrous things.
Have you ever heard of the lead hypothesis?
What's that? Oh yes, the lead in the water.
The lead in the gas.
The gas. Sorry.
So like, yeah, we had leaded gasoline for years and years before this, and so this is a perfect example of industry and capitalism working with the government. The lead industry, I mean, there were lead toys in the 40s and the 30s and the 50s. And, I can't remember when they banned lead, but there were like scientists who knew like this is killing people. Here we've seen it come back in Flint, Michigan today, right? Yeah. Lead poisoning the children of Flint, Michigan. But back then, like everybody, if you were around automobiles, you were breathing in leaded gasoline. You were taking in a neurotoxin, a degenerative neurotoxin that is proven to remove inhibitions. It creates violent tendencies, like all these issues. And where do people like Richard Ramirez live? Los Angeles, right? Which had its own atmosphere of pollution, right? Smog. My dad growing up in the 70s, the late 60s told me like, yeah, there was a smog report. He grew up in like closer to Santa Barbara, and we would check the smog report before we went to LA, because if you went, you would see it as you came over the hills and the mountain or whatever on the 101, and you would just sink into it like a
you cough. I remember like early on when I was young and go to LA, we'd always cough when we got there. And you'd blow your nose and all the black shit would come out. LA was gross.
Yeah. And to not understand how all of that stuff is connected. I think COVID, I mean, there are so many Americans who are just absolutely dug their heels in, who are not going to understand this, right? Corona, climate, chronic emergency. Jesus. He's got a book for everything, folks. He's amazing. The amazing Jason Myles. Oh!
No, this is he's coming on the show.
Oh, my God.
Read this book, everybody. It's very good.
All right. Corona, climate, and what was it?
Chronic emergency, war, communism in the 21st century. It's literally about where we are with zoonotic diseases. Mike Davis also wrote a book about zoonotic diseases in 2003, predicting a lot of the things that we're doing now. I had an interview with him that's going to air Sunday. We talked about that a little bit.
Wow. Nobody could have seen this coming. Nobody. Nobody.
China.
Nobody was talking about this. Nobody. So tell me, Jason, like, what is your how long have you been doing This Is Revolution, and like what's the goal for the show? We talked a little bit about about it at the beginning, but I feel like I didn't give you enough time to really talk about what you're trying to do with it.
Originally, I wanted to do a podcast for a while, actually, and nobody thought it was a good idea and just didn't know how to do it. And then after we got done with the tour in 2019, I just kept talking about wanting to do a podcast afterwards, and I thought it was going to be a good idea. And then finally, my drummer said, well, fine, let's do this while we wait for the next tour cycle. And so he didn't move fast enough, so I just recorded the first episode by myself, and I didn't know how to do it. It was just me talking into the ether.
Sounds like me and my first shows, yeah.
All I knew how to do is make music, so I made music to talk to, and I bitched about Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Class. Jay-Z, Kanye West, Ellen, and Class. That was my first episode. It was after Ellen did some shit with George Bush, and the show originally was going to be us talking about music and politics, because I have access to so many musicians at the studio, right? I could just peek my head out the door and be like, hey, Faith No More guys, come on, let's do an episode. So that didn't happen that way. And then we would have, there would be like talks I'd like to have with people, because I always find people interesting, right? Like if I met you at Santa Maria, you and I would probably have a long 8-hour conversation about a bunch of shit, because that's just how I am. And I travel so much. What am I going to do? Sit around and play with my phone while I'm in Louisville, Kentucky? Or am I going to sit down and talk to the Joe Payne of Louisville, Kentucky? So,
their tri-tip sucks, by the way. Just
For those that don't know, Santa Maria has a special tri-tip that is called the Santa Maria Cut.
Tri-tip is Santa Maria. Like it's not called tri-tip anywhere else. But yeah, we cook it over red oak, and that goes back to like the Vaquero days or something like that.
And it is an institution there. I will say that. So don't if he talks about tri-tip, he's being very serious. He's keeping it 100% real with you right now. He's not for the bullshit.
I will tell you, I have appraised tri-tip over Twitter before. I'll do it again. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. But so the whole thing was supposed to be, I would ask musicians and I'd ask people that I meet a lot about a genre called nu metal, because I felt that there were politics behind nu metal that I found somewhat racist. And I would always ask this question to a lot of musicians that were even part of the genre, like big time people. I'm not going to name names. And I'd ask the question, like, do you feel the initial backlash to nu metal was a racist one? And I got some really interesting comments, and I definitely was like, I did save a lot of these conversations on Facebook, and they're gone now.
Oh,
kind of unfortunate.
Shit.
But
Damn you,
anyway,
Facebook. Oh, hey, I forgot to tell you.
yeah.
I did a live stream on Insurrection Day. That's what we're going to call it from now on, January 6th, Insurrection
Cool.
Day.
dig it.
And YouTube took that shit down. And they won't put it back. I've challenged it, but
What did you say?
I hopped on and I was like, guys, this is not my usual streaming day. Like, I'm studying for a history degree right now, so I'm like, this is in the historical interest of what the fuck is this shit, you know? And it might be because I played the video that got Trump banned from Twitter, right? The initial, like, we love you, you're very special, stop burning and killing, please, but we love you, you're a good boy, you know, all that whole thing. So I think that might have been taken down, but, you know, I was
That's
like,
silly to take it down for that.
oh, I don't know. They put me under a weird category like spam or disinformation or some shit like that. I was like, I'm sorry, like I wasn't saying anything that wasn't happening. I was just playing clips. But you know, you were telling me about you losing your Facebook, and I was like, man, I can't really identify. And then I was like, oh wait,
No, that shit sucks when they demonetize or take something down because you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I put a lot of effort and time into this, and
Mm-hmm.
it's important information that I think that I'm putting out, and for you to take it down is really, really frustrating. So that's how the show kind of started with topics like that, and then as we had to shut down because of Corona,
Mm-hmm.
then I was forced to have to talk to people remotely. Hello,
There's your
can
boy.
you come over here? You going night night? Well, don't close the door. You can leave it open, young man.
Aw.
No? All right. So that's my son.
Yeah.
So I started interviewing people, and Alex Vitale was the first big interview that I got.
Alex Vitale. Who's he with again?
He wrote a book called The End of Policing.
Oh, yes. Alex Vitale. Yes.
And through Alex Vitale, I met a lot of other people, Gloria LaRiva, Gerald Horn was
Saw
on the
that one.
show. The last show I had in studio was actually Robbie Martin. So if you're familiar with Abby Martin's brother, Robbie.
Oh, cool. Wow.
He's got really good. He's got an amazing show, and he did a 4-hour takedown of QAnon.
Oh,
So you want to hear a 4-hour history of QAnon starting from Pizzagate? Robbie came on my show right after he had done that, and me and him just kind of chilled out in this. The last time we were 6 feet apart in this hot ass studio in Oakland, fucking talking shit about QAnon and all
blowing
that.
water droplets in each other's eyes and everything.
Oh,
Good old
man.
days, the
Just
before times.
Spreading COVID. We had masks on, so if you listen to that show, it sounds weird because we're both with masks and we're hella far away.
Okay, wow.
But the whole show is honestly to try to grow this thing that we call the left, and I'm trying to grow it from a true working class center, a center that I've been around, and a center that I understand because I come from it, and that's all the show is. And I mean, also it was a way to do shit while we were touring.
Well, you ain't got shit to do. I hear you.
And so I don't have shit. This is the only thing I'm doing right now. Actually,
Wow.
is this show, which is why I'm able to have so many streams. I'm going live tomorrow with another friend of mine, 9:00 Pacific Standard Time.
Way cool.
And you know, that's just
What
the only way I feel like I can do that is by history lessons. So I have people have some interesting histories that I think are very valuable to be narratives to get people up out of their seat and go, I want to get involved with something.
Yeah.
I want to do something other than just hashtag my way to either fame or to feeling good about the situation that the world is in.
Yeah. Or tearing down what little hope we might have. Yeah, crapping all over it. So where can people find your show? Where can people how can people support you if this is the only thing you're doing? Like what are the ways to transfer the the digital particulates of dinero your way?
So, there's a Patreon. It's very small right now. I'm very bad at asking for money.
This is the first time hearing about your Patreon, Jason. That's a problem.
It's patreon.com/bitterlakepresents.
Okay. Was that your band, Bitter Lake?
That's the band.
Cool.
So the Patreon is very like band centered.
Of course.
Because it's still like band shit. Like I still will send you band merch if you are like a $5. I'll send you a shirt and shit.
That's cool. That's cool.
hoodies. People dig them. The imagery of the band was very political, so the imagery is very political.
Oh, neat.
Um,
Well, maybe start a This Is Revolution Patreon.
that was the plan, was to change the name, but it was already there and there was already people that were on it, so we just saved it because This Is Revolution was a change from a good friend of mine that actually creates content for a living, like high end stuff, and he liked the show and he goes, "Tell you what I'm gonna do. We're gonna give you a show makeover, see?"
Oh, yeah.
And he planned some things out for me. And
Nice. I need a friend like that. Shit.
It was music, man. Music industry.
That's
Music
good.
industry. There's all kinds of good people that want to help you out. If you're a good person, I think you're a good person, Joe. From the little bit I know you, and the
What a
people
guy.
that I know that know you,
What a guy.
I'm sure good people help you out along the way.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, hey, I got, you came on my show. You're my first guest. I really appreciate you coming, Jason. Yeah, I was like, I need somebody good on as for my first guest. I'm gonna be trying to do because the mission of your show is the mission of my show, which is let's grow the left. Yeah, I'm not gonna lecture at you about Marx and Das Kapital and all that stuff because because I haven't read Das Kapital. Right, I'm way behind on my reading. I'll admit it.
It's long.
Yeah, yeah, but also I've just been working like this whole time. I never got my degree. I'm hustling to do that now in my early 30s. I've just been a print journalist. Which used to be like a very steady blue collar job in the United States. Like go to the meetings, let people know what the budget report was. It's not sexy. It's not fun. Being an informed citizen isn't supposed to be fun. But everybody has this idea of the left, and part of like finding the MR world and Michael Brooks and them was like realizing that I was being taken for a ride by this group of people who's always talking about the left, and the Sam Harrises, and then all of these people
of the world,
yeah, and it's just there's only so many times you can hear Joe Rogan talk about elk meat or whatever. Ayahuasca or whatever the fuck before you realize like how many Americans, millions of people are spinning their wheels listening to this shit,
3-hour shows, man.
Fucking A. Or just like and having too many conversations with bros who think they've read a book because they listen to a podcast, and
That's awesome.
yeah. And
I've
so
never heard that. I like that. Thank you.
Just guys who think like I know about stuff. I heard a podcast once, bro, and it's like, but yeah. So I think growing the left is gonna take more of us. It's gonna take people like you and me who, I have a print journalism experience. You have a music, more of a music experience and recording studio experience. I think it's gonna take more working people like us, people who could tell stories like the ones I've heard you tell, about what's going on in your community. Last story, I have visited Richmond once. My dad, when my parents divorced, I hope he doesn't see this, he did the typical like divorced boomer thing, and he sold he bought a boat, he bought a sailing boat, like his dream, and
he was in Point Richmond.
Huh?
He was in Point Richmond.
Yes. And he docked it in apparently the place where Scott Peterson, more true crime connection, shoved off from to allegedly dump his wife into the bay. I remember us getting off the freeway, and like the first thing I saw was a dude. I can't remember if like his pants were around his ankles, but he was walking into oncoming traffic with a dollar bill in his hand. And just this like this 100-mile stare, and just like walking out into oncoming traffic with a dollar bill, and I was just like, oh fuck, like I've never seen anything like this before.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's rough, and people need to know what it's like, I really like your show a lot. People, you guys need to check out This Is Revolution. It's opening my mind to things I didn't know about, never heard about. To hear you and Toure read and Pascal, what's his last name?
Robert.
What, dude? Where did he get that bougie name?
He's Haitian.
Oh,
he speaks French. And Creole.
Oh, I would love to get him to spit some French.
Have him on your show, man. Pascal he's a very smart man. He's a very good dude. We don't agree on everything,
I could
but
tell. It's fun.
it is fun because
Yeah.
again, if I make again, if we make the environment comfortable, you walk into my barber shop of commentary, you're gonna sit down and it's gonna be like the Coming to America barbershop.
That's awesome.
And that's the environment that I because that's the environment that I grew up in. If you ever seen the movie Coach Carter,
I think I
the
saw that
Disney
one.
movie with Samuel L. Jackson, and the coach tells the team that they can't play because they didn't make grades. So that guy is from Richmond. The movie took place in Richmond,
Oh,
and he
wow.
owned a barbershop, and the barbershop was ghetto as fuck.
Wow.
And he is not Samuel L. Jackson. He wasn't a bad dude, but the people that ran his barbershop, it was ghetto as fuck. You get anything in that barbershop. You get hookers,
Ooh.
cars, dope, DVDs, bootleg. You get anything you want in that barbershop. But that was my down the street from my house, and that's where
Wow.
I went, and that's where I got all my information, good, bad, and all the other information. Right?
Yeah.
It was real people telling you real things, and they would have like really interesting opinions on the world. These men would have,
Mm-hmm.
and they would call out the bullshit. And I was like, let's have an environment like that where I'm going to bring in these really scholarly.
And then yeah, and then you're putting in your jokes in between. I love that
Oh
shit.
yeah, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna. If you could only hear us when we're not recording, which no one should hear those conversations. They're very very.
I can only imagine, man. I can only imagine.
It sounds like a rap video, but it it's fun. It's fun, and then now doing it with Zero Books and getting those guys in on it too, who are also a lot of fun. Like Derek Varn is actually. I was a little afraid of him. I thought he was a little mean at first, and then when we got to talking, me and him are boys. Doug is cool. Gene Bajlan is the homie.
Yeah.
So coming in there and adding a different feel into what they do, which is a little more serious. Their imagery is a little silly, but the stuff they're saying is very serious.
Yeah,
And of
yeah,
course, I'm
yeah.
saying serious shit too, but
Scholarly types.
it's going to be more like, if Eddie Murphy was saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. We both went for it. Oh man. So, what are the platforms? What are all your platforms that people can find you on? I know you on YouTube.
YouTube,
Okay.
Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, Pandora now.
Holy
Pandora
cow!
picked us up.
Holy cow!
So there's the live stream show, and then I do a podcast as well, where it's just audio and it's me and another person. And then Sunday, a new episode is airing with Mike Davis. It was called "Never Give Up the Streets." Mike he had just wrote a really good piece about the insurrection, and we talked about that. We talked a lot about COVID. We
Mhm.
talked a lot about healthcare.
Damn, we didn't even get to talk about the insurrection.
Eh, enough people have it. I
Yeah,
told you. I'll be real quick about this. I got some. I want to say this because I don't know if I'm going to say this on my stream because I'm so mad about it.
let's hear it.
I got some shit on Twitter because someone had said some shit about everybody that was in the insurrection was rich,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, maybe I don't know. I don't know what's in everyone's pocket and bank account.
Yeah.
And so then the next comment was, well, this guy got a PPP loan. I was like, oh, I had heard that. Okay. But I
Yeah, the guy
didn't
with
think
his
it was
feet
that
on
much
the
money.
desk. Yeah. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
the feet on this. He got a PPP loan. Then someone else goes, and this one lady took a private jet. I was like, you know what? Didn't know that. And so this guy was like, I don't know what he was trying to do. And he sent me the article. And it was a New York Daily News article about the private jet lady. And all she did was charter a private jet. And I was like, oh, well, I've done that. It's not very expensive. Sometimes it's cheaper than Southwest.
Hmm.
And it's really cool because you don't have to check your bag. And the first thing they tell you to do is you are not allowed to take pictures. And what do people do that ain't never been nowhere? They take pictures. And then they tell you, hey man, if you take a picture again, you can't fly. Because it's a private they're parked where other people are parking their private shit, their Cessnas and shit. So those people don't want these regular folks, these poor folks, that are on the flight that's now,
to bring
a
their
little
brand
more
down.
commercial. Exactly. So somebody then responded and goes, I've never heard of a regular person chartering a private plane. I was like, well, because you're making it sound like it's for a Bond villain. It's very common. Use the Google box and look it up.
I wonder if anybody took a party bus to the insurrection.
No, seriously.
Get a little
Like
pole
that's
dancing in on the way there.
and then someone said if you're a real working class person, you would never take time off work to go do this. I was like, that's not true. People take time off work for graduations. People take time off work to go to ball games. People take time off work to do all kinds of shit they want to do when they feel it's important. So don't sit there and say that this is what working class people do because it sounds like you might not be working class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's in everyone's bank account that decided that they wanted to go dress up like Jungle Jamiroquai and bust up cops' heads and shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I don't know what went through their heads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what goes through their bank accounts. I just don't know. I can speculate. Some people were cops. Were they all cops? Nope.
Nope.
It's a mixed bag, man.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing I've tried to get across to people is that, like, yeah, there were the paramilitary dudes with the zip ties and the plans and the maps of the tunnels, but they were, like this, splinter cell surrounded by, just a bunch of, MAGA hat wearing angry people who believe, this lie that it's been stolen from them. And we had I mentioned this on the call to the Majority Report. We have a guy here in town who's the CEO of a nonprofit. So it's not that working class really, or well, I mean he is, but he's doing pretty okay, right? But even when it's interesting because when I heard him on this conservative guy's radio show, which dude Andy Caldwell, like this radio guy who ran for Congress out here. His YouTube ads, it's fucking nuts, man. It's just
I think I'm gonna play your YouTube thing tomorrow on my show, though. By the way,
what my call?
No.
What?
That thing you did with the sheriffs.
Oh God! Ooh, yeah. If you gotta be careful. You gotta put a warning on that because your viewers might die of cringe. But yeah, like dude, Andy Caldwell's YouTube ads were like Black Lives Matter and the Antifa terrorists, and and all of this stuff. And he was just full Trump. And he said something like. He's like, systemic racism doesn't exist. The only systemic racism that black people face is abortions. Like, yeah, yes, yeah, exactly. Like, that's how full on this guy is. So he brings
I'd like
on.
to take a deep dive with that thought.
Woo! Yeah, he's something. And so we had this guy, this nonprofit CEO on his show, and what's the first thing this guy does? But he starts with the working class shit. He starts going, well, I grew up at a time when my parents did so well and the economy didn't really work for me. And I was never really into politics. I was always an independent, never registered Democrat, never registered Republican. But then Donald Trump came along and he had a message about the economy and about blah, 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 blah. So it was like he had all these like ways to remove himself from booking a plane in the middle of a pandemic and going out there to stand for Donald Trump to the point that you commit federal crimes, I guess. But
Donald Trump, for a lot of people, let's be honest, he represents a thumbing of. Watch the Thousand Cuts documentary about how Rodrigo Duterte silenced the media in the Philippines, but it's also tells a story about the rise of Duterte.
Okay.
And he's a guy that kind of like Trump was not respected. Let's remember Trump was not respected amongst New York elites.
Yeah.
They didn't like him. And Duterte was from a smaller province that he was like the governor of and rose to power on the fear of drug addiction that really is hurting the Philippines. It's a problem there.
Yeah.
It's a problem for poor people.
Yeah.
So where these kingpins that are actually manufacturing shit and getting it shipped in from other countries in this weird methy distribution triangle that's over there in Southeast Asia, they're not getting shot in the face by law enforcement.
No.
Or even going to really jail. But it's the poor people that get caught with like these minuscule amounts of dope that are getting just shot left and right. And Duterte brags about it.
Jesus.
But he speaks to these people, especially the diaspora that has left that's here in America, they hear the stories of, oh, so-and-so just succumbed to his addiction again. so and so just stole because they're addicted again. And it reminds me of crack and hearing all these stories about crack. And crack is, these kids get addicted to crack and they're born and they're never ever going to do anything with their life. And that ended up being, in the great words of Maury Povich, and that was a lie. No.
Dude, it's crazy because like when I was at that guitar factory,
Mhm.
I'm sitting next to a bunch of like in their 40s, 50s, and 60s Filipinos,
Mhm.
and I have so much love for Filipinos. One of my best friends, his mom was like, like I was her kid when I came to her house,
Mhm.
and like I just fell in love working with them at the factory, and they taught me magandang umaga sayo, and like all these different things to say in Tagalog or Tagalog. And I remember one day like going, hey, so how about that Duterte over there? And they're like, oh yeah, he's a bit much, but there's a lot less crime now. And these are just
Right.
little like church going American, Filipinos, and they just work hard and go home, and what they hear, that's what they hear back, right, about it.
So my episode with Dylan Rodriguez that's up right now, we talk about that because he is Filipino and has a
Wow.
great book about the Filipino diaspora and racism in America. And so he gave a little bit of a Filipino history. We didn't get too deep of a dive. We're going to do it probably next time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I look at Donald Trump and he kind of speaks to those same fears, and he also thumbs his nose at that same class of people that people feel were empowered during the Obama years.
The elites, yeah.
The, and that's how he referred to him. A guy
Yep.
from Queens is talking about coastal elites. Like, really? So amazing.
The guy who lives
And
in
I
a
don't know if you remember
golden
when
skyscraper.
do you remember when he was running for office and his son was trying to explain how his dad is the most working class person he knows because he knows the fucking dump truck drivers, which was a
Oh
bunch
my
of
god.
bullshit.
Yeah, he bilked him out of money. Like he doesn't.
We have to admit that we've spent so many years showing this bad guy as a good guy. We've romanticized the scoundrel
Yeah.
so fucking much.
Yep.
What's the first line in Good? Not the first line. What's the line in Goodfellas? He's the kind
As
of guy
long
that roots
as
for the bad guy in the movies.
I thought it was
Tommy.
as long as I can remember. I always wanted to be a gangster.
That
And
take Goodfellas and just place it right on Donald Trump, and then think about so many people that have taken Goodfellas and Wolf of Wall Street and even Wall Street, and that just becomes like these are just smarter guys, and these guys know how to get things done. And I want to align myself with a smart guy. I can tell you, I know a woman that was there. She took selfies from the fucking Capitol, smiling. Her pictures, and now everything's gone. That I lost my shit.
yeah,
Looked like a picnic, but much like those hangings. Remember the picture of the hanging, the very famous picture of the lynching,
yeah, it was a fucking
and people.
picnic.
That's what it was for some people. It was like this. Oh, hey, this woman was a friend of my ex and had somehow moved to Philadelphia. This was maybe 6, 7 years ago. We were on tour in Philadelphia. She came out to see us, and she did not listen to the kind of music we did, but she came out anyway because we all knew each other. And instead of having us sleep in the van, she got us a hotel room. She was not rich at all. She was just doing a little bit better that week. She was like, you know what?
Yeah,
Come stay at this hotel, and I already got it for you guys. And she hung out with us. Very nice woman. She was at the Trump rally.
yeah.
She's not rich. So
I
it's a mixed bag of people that are there.
absolutely, and that's my thing is like I've been saying that. You had all the people who never went inside. You have all the people who just stood on the steps. You have all the Pepe the Frog guys doing it for the gram. And if we were to bring it back to Star Wars, do you remember in Attack of the Clones, there's the scene where Padme, and it's during just the not very well executed romance escalation, right?
That was a really horrible romance.
Yeah, yes, and I think this is after the sand line that everyone does. But they're sitting in that little like field, and they're like laying down talking, and he goes, "Politics just seems so boring, right?" And she's like, "Well, it's a lot of work, Annie. It's like all these things, and like it sounds like me. Like, listen, politics is hard. It's economics. It's history. It's and and then he's like, I wish like one person who was like benevolent and powerful could just do everything for make all the decisions for everybody." And she goes, "Annie, that sounds like a dictatorship." And then he goes, "Well, if it works." Right? He says that, and it's this moment, and she's looking at him, and then she goes, "You're making fun of me." And he goes, he was trolling her. It was a Pepe the Frog troll. He was trolling her with his fascism. Like, that's what stuck out to me when we watched it last time. I was like, holy shit, he's joking about the fash now.
Just wait till he puts on that suit later.
Yeah.
Kills the younglings.
Oh, God.
Which is one that I cried. I cried twice. I cried twice during Star Wars movies. I'll tell this to everybody watching.
Do it.
I give a fuck. I cried when he killed the younglings in Revenge of the Sith. And I cried at the redone Return of the Jedi where it's Anakin at the end.
That got you?
Caden Christensen.
Oh, I cried when they added in that Jabba the Hutt cut scene, the scene that was deleted scene from in New Hope. Remember that?
When he walks over when he was.
Yeah. That's when I cried. I was just like, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh, Jason Myles. I feel like it's funny watching your show. There's this point where Pascal goes, "Are we done now?" I feel like, and you're always looking at him like, man, we got an hour left. Like, I could go for another hour. I feel like we could go all night.
Well, right now I got. There's a beige child. Speaking of Filipinos, there's a little Filipino child in the next room that is going to yell at me for a little bit.
That's awesome, man. Read him some, Douglas Lane or Ben Burgess or the read him some Zero books.
He's getting read. There's a very thick Star Wars book he has that he's getting read. There's Star Wars stories for children that he's
starting him young.
Yeah, he does. He does at bath time. Actually, bath time. He got City of Course by Mike Davis.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. You're a good dad, man. You're a good dad. You're a good podcast host. I got to hear you. I still haven't heard your music. Man, that's not cool. Where can people find you? You're like, don't do that.
It's not for everybody.
Where is it?
Anytime I do a show. So the podcast starts off all the music I make.
Oh yeah, guys, go I think I have 9 people watching. All 9 of you, go check out This Is Revolution. Jason Myles is on there with Pascal Robert, and they have all kinds of people on there. It's a great show, and I really like the music. You got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, so all those clips with music, that's on me.
Yeah. So check out. You can hear Jason's music. You can hear
that's
him.
not what I make when I go to tour.
Yeah. You got to share some of that with me sometime. But thank you for being with me, man. And I'll be in the comments of your next show for sure.
Hey, I always say it. I love what you do. What I've seen when I get a chance to jump on,
Thanks.
and I watch what you do. I appreciate all of that.
Thanks.
I love that you come from a local point and you're like, hey, even though this is a story in my small town, there's a bigger narrative.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
I'm serious about this book trade.
Okay.
Anything you got that Reagan land I want to read. So when you're done with that, I'll definitely be done with this.
Cool.
We can trade. You can get yesterday's man.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
So, peace, man.
Peace, Jason. We'll see you next time.